guys, this is Stormouse03, and this is my Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings Dark Difficulty walkthrough. Alright guys, so in this episode I'm going to be doing the DLC side missions. And so if you don't have this DLC or you don't have the Enhanced Edition, I don't think these quests are available. That door I'm going to come back to a little bit later. But I think that if this is the DLC, I'm pretty certain that this is the DLC. And I think it's pretty good. Like, I enjoyed these quests. Pretty interesting. So, and it kind of ties in to the main thing. So when you go through that door, you'll have a little cutscene, and you'll be seeing a familiar face from the Iorveth path. Gonna be meeting back up with Cynthia, who you would remember from that storyline if you did that path. If you did the Roach path, you probably don't know who this person is. But luckily, I do. And I don't like her too much. She's sort of blah. But anyway, she serves her purpose for this particular quest line, and the two scientists do some pretty funny things. They're involved in some funny business. But basically, they hired you to go along with them to try to find this artifact left by I guess he was a scholar slash scientist slash mage who lived in Loc Muinne a long time ago, and he has some information about this disease that wiped out some of the population back then during a war. I don't remember the exact details. It's been a little while since I actually looked at them. But that's basically the premise. And Cynthia and the people who are with her are Nilfgaardians, and they're kind of the enemy of the northern peoples. And so you're kind of potentially giving enemies a powerful tool at this point, if you're doing this quest, which is, you know, interesting. I mean, Geralt doesn't really have, I think, strong allegiances to any of the major areas, right? So he doesn't really serve a ruler. He was with King Foltest in the beginning, but I mean, he doesn't really have an allegiance to a particular kingdom. So you know, it makes sense. He's a witcher for hire, right? He's a professional kind of monster mercenary. So it makes sense that he wouldn't care who's hiring him, really, as long as they're paying. So you have a Queen Andrega here. Can be kind of irritating just because the space is weird. But fortunately enough, the rest of our comrades drew the attention of the rest of these Andrega. They don't really do a whole lot, your companions, as far as killing things, but they will help you out as far as distracting things. And that's per usual. As far as this game goes, that's normal state of affairs. There is a lot of loot in this area, and so one thing that, you know, I'll point out to you right now, I haven't purchased or crafted any of the set, the armor and weapons set that I'm going to be getting in this chapter. if you do have this DLC, it will help you make quite a bit of money. But if you were watching the end of the last video, I already had over 10,000 orans, which is, I think, more than enough to be able to buy and craft that set. So you don't really have to worry about it if you don't have this DLC and don't have this bit of extra content for the extra, you know, money and XP and stuff. It doesn't matter. You're going to be able to level up, and you're going to be able to purchase all that stuff even without doing this. It's just sort of an extra little interesting side bit here. So we had a little cutscene there. There are some other people who are down here looking for this, and Cynthia reveals this door. And so this is the first of a set of like riddles that you're going to have to solve in order to move on. But don't worry about this particular riddle, because you won't have to answer this one. And so here's scientist number 1, who thinks that this is the easiest thing in the world.
Indeed, it's trivial. The answer is pain.
Incorrect. Incorrect. You know, the voice of this thing sounds kind of like the Reapers from Mass Effect. Now that I'm thinking about it, it has that same kind of intimidating, motionless voice. Sort of mechanical. So, scientist number 1 is down. Down for the count. And so it's up to Geralt to solve this next riddle. I think that there are several different ones that you might get, so you may not get this particular one. And so you can ask your followers, like, to give you an example of, like, to show their reasoning on what they think it is. I didn't bother with them because it was very easy. And so I was like, well, I don't care what they have to say. And generally they're wrong. So, and I'm not sure how reliable that is. I've only done this quest a couple of times, but I would say most of them are going to be wrong. A couple of times, one of them might give you the right answer, but you don't know which one it is. And so, you know, it might be kind of a way to eliminate certain answers, because if you hear their reasoning, you might think, well, that doesn't exactly make sense. So, I don't know. The riddles aren't too terribly difficult, in my opinion. But the answer to that particular one was time. Yay! And so again, just a cache of good stuff that you can pick up to sell. And when you come through into this area, you're going to have a lot of Verdanian soldiers to destroy. Make sure you're on your steel sword for these guys. Sometimes I forget to switch, and then I have a hard time, and I'm wondering why I'm struggling, and I realize that it's because I have the wrong freaking sword out. And, you know, it's something to keep up with, right? Because sometimes the game will select the sword for you. It'll sort of auto-select the thing that you need. And other times, it'll just, most of the time actually, it will just auto-equip the last sword that you had selected. And so, just gotta be careful. Be aware of what you're doing. I mean, we're deep into chapter 3 right now, so you should remember, but I don't always, so it's always a good thing to keep in mind. And so this room, the puzzle is kind of neat. You can go around and pick up all of these books that are sort of sparkling, and they can give you a little bit of insight into what this next riddle is going to entail. A little bit of information about some of the things that it's going to ask you to identify. And so that's pretty cool, because basically you're going to have to choose the right pictures that have the right imagery of something that the door is describing. And so if you check out some of these books, it'll talk about, you know, certain legends, and, you know, this one's talking about astrology and dragons and ladies and that kind of thing. And if you check these out, once the door gives you its little test, you'll recognize some of the stuff from some of these books. So that's why they're labeled as quest items. This one, I'm not sure what's significant about that, but anyway, you come up here, you talk to the door. I'm fast forwarding through this just because it's lengthy, you know. And so he's telling you this whole riddle thing. And I love that little comment by Geralt. What were you saying about the riddles being too easy? I mean, it's really funny, puzzles in these things. A lot of times people will complain about them being too easy, but then when they make something harder, people are like, this is too hard, how would you figure it out? But this one actually isn't too bad. So you have 3 choices for each one of the things that you need. For this first one, it's talking about a dragon, and if you'll remember, there was talk about a dragon in the astrology book, and so it's the constellation of the dragon that we're wanting here. And so your 3 choices here are for the lady, and the one that you want to pick is the moon, the one that symbolizes the moon. And you'll get a little bit of information on each one. Each of the 3 companions that are with you will give their take on what it should be. And you can kind of pick which one sounds right based on what they're saying and based on the books that you read. For this one, it's this mountain vault, not this tower, but the one before it. And so it's the mine entrance in the mountainside. That's which one it's supposed to be. And so you and the 2 mages are going to go stand at the respective frescoes. And the other scientist guy was like, I'm not going to stand there. That's crazy. No freaking way. And this is what happens. Oh, scientist guys. It's a sad day for you. A really sad day. And so for your final test, you're going to go in and talk to this golem. And he is kind of a sentinel left to guard this sort of room where the guy who, I forget his name, but the guy who you are trying to find his writings and artifacts and stuff, he left this golem here to sort of protect his things. And it has this kind of programming such that, you know, it's supposed to welcome a guest and stop intruders. And so you have a lot of dialogue that you can go through with it, and basically what you're trying to do is out logic it is basically what you're doing here. You're trying to you know, figure out how you can deactivate this golem without having to fight it, because if you have to fight it, I think you actually have to fight 3. And I actually did not do this correctly my first time through, and so I wasn't 100% confident that I was going to be able to do it here. But as it turned out, I used my brain a little bit and was able to do it, which is nice. So if you just follow along the conversation trees that I select, you'll be able to do it too. And that's pretty cool. I mean, I think basically the idea is you're trying to get it into this paradoxical thinking, right? So the sense that, you know, anybody who comes and talks to it could be lying, and so it can't really tell whether they're a guest or an intruder, and that is problematic for it because guests are supposed to be able to pass, but intruders are supposed to be stopped. And if it's possible that someone could be lying about whether they're a guest or an intruder, it doesn't know who they are, and therefore it can't really do anything. Because it would be against its programming if it harmed someone who was a guest who it thought was an intruder, and it would be also against its programming if it let someone in who was an intruder who was pretending to be a guest. So you kind of break its brain a little bit. As you are doing this. So you talk to it a little bit, and then you have this, alrighty, that's enough, I know what to do moment, and that's when we're going to, you know, go on this train of thought. And so you're appealing to it logically here. I think the bottom line is that the choices that feel like they are based on appealing to emotion, right? Like, we're guests, let us in, or you know, we can set you free. It doesn't care about those things because it's an automaton and it doesn't really have emotions, and so appealing to those is not good. There's an axis sign thing here, and I chose not to do that because it's likely that you would fail, and that may be where I failed when I did this the first time through. It's hard to remember because it's been a while ago. Dear Henna, that's the person's name. And we broke his brain. Yay! Sorry to have fast forwarded through all that. It was a kind of a cool conversation, but it just takes a really long time, and these videos are already really lengthy, and I wanted to get both of these little DLC side quests in this one video, so it was necessary to kind of speed through some of that. But I think it was easy enough to figure out, you know, what I was clicking on there. So after a little cutscene, you'll actually have to fight this one mage guy who is an absolute bastard because he makes copies of himself, and you kind of have to kill all of them. They all throw on kin, and they all shoot lightning and fire and stuff at you. Actually, he might not shoot fire. He might only shoot lightning. But, just really an unpleasant guy here. And could probably really put some hurting on you if you let him. And so irritating, the invincibility frames that this guy gets when he's teleporting around like a jackrabbit. Because you'll see that I'm full on hitting this guy, but not doing any damage because he gets iframes when he's teleporting and when he's putting on kin. And it's like, that shouldn't happen. I don't feel like I get iframes when I throw on Ken. I get slapped in the back. I mean, I guess I might get iframes. I don't know. But it's just irritating. He irritates me with his teleporty nonsense. And so I think we've got them down to one last guy. And he's gonna actually die from her incineration. So way to go, Cynthia. You are the only NPC who's ever actually done anything, I think. Other than distract enemies. So I leveled up once again. I'm gonna put my point into the violence, I think it's called, which allows me to have better sword damage. And then you just want to loot this area. None of the swords and stuff that you pick up are going to be any better than what you've already got, but again, there's stuff to sell. And when you pick up all of the pieces of the journal that are scattered around this room, you can go back to the pub and talk to Cynthia about the grimoire, if you want to. It's just another kind of conversation tree piece of information. And once you're done, you can return to the surface. I'm actually going to show you now the second quest, the second little side quest that's in this tower here. The first door to the left. I don't know what I'm doing right now. Oh, I was just checking to see if there was anything at the bottom of the stairs, and there wasn't. So it's the door that's closest to the exit. And through here, you're going to have some super wraiths. They're called, well, you have one regular wraith, and then you have one of these bruxas. And so she's basically like an upgraded wraith. Works very similarly. Will hurt if she hits you too much. And so what you want to do with these resonating crystals is use your Igni sign on some of them. That one actually needed an Igni sign, and some of them need an Ard sign. So this one right here needs an Ard. And I think if you hit it with the wrong sign, it will hurt you. Or maybe not. This one needs an Axie. Or I mean an Ard. Goodness gracious. And that one needs an Igni. Can't speak. And putting those on there, the correct ones, will open the door down at the bottom. As I search this place one last time to make sure there wasn't any loot I missed, because goodness knows I don't want to miss any loot. I'm a crazy person. I can't remember how I figured out that you needed to use Igni and Ard on those crystals. There might have been like a manuscript or a book or something that gave you a clue that you found in this area. It's hard to say. So again, there's a little bit of loot scattered around this room. And you just want to be aware that this place right here, you don't want to grab that forgotten Vran sword until you're ready to fight. And when you're ready to fight, you pick it up, and that's going to trigger a cutscene and a fight. So you want to get ready, and you want to put on your steel sword. That's important, because I had trouble with this, and one of the reasons why is because I didn't switch swords. So this guy is a human being. and I kept treating him as though he was a monster and using my silver sword, and it really just did not do enough damage at all. So you're going to be swapping swords at several points during this fight. Don't stay in the radius of the yellow circle on the floor. That is bad news. You will get destroyed. So every time you do about you take off about a quarter of this guard's life, he will teleport up to one of the sides where you can't hit him, and he'll spawn in some wraiths, and you'll have more and more wraiths each time. So you just want to make sure that you swap to your silver sword for the wraiths and then swap back to your steel sword for the guard, and you're going to find this a whole lot easier, or at least I did. He's also irritating because he puts on kin and teleports around the room. And so when he throws on kin, he usually gets off about 3 fireballs during the lifespan of the kin, and then you can go in and hit him a couple of times. Was that enough to... Yep, that was enough to take off enough of his health to spawn in the wraiths. And so this time there are 3. The first time there were only 2. And you want to be really careful with them because they can definitely cause you some issues. So when he spawns in, I usually try to hide behind the statue a little bit, waiting for my vigors to return before I head in and try to kill him. And now I haven't swapped swords, and I realized it as soon as I got up next to him. And I was like, need to do that. Because you'll see how much damage this takes off when you're doing those heavy attacks. Like, just a couple of hits will be enough. And so I'm now kind of waiting for his kin to go away. And that was enough to have him teleport again. This time there's going to be 4 wraiths. You want to switch swords like I didn't do. There we go. It's so hard to remember in the heat of this battle. It really is. So those are all those wraiths dead. And now this should be the last time that I need to hit him. And his little fire bomb from the sky thing is severely irritating. Because it makes it more difficult for you to try to dodge his fireball attacks. It's just more irritating in general. But there he is, he's dead. And you get this side door opening up so that you can go claim a little bit more treasure. And everything else down here, there will be a couple more wraiths and bruxas, but everything else is monster category, so you can keep your silver sword on from here on out. And you'll have a few of them spawn in this room. The general rule is there are a couple that will spawn just on their own, and then it's kind of like every big coffin thing that you loot, one will spawn. Is kind of the general rule, although obviously not. That's not 100% true. But they tend to spawn in when you loot the big coffins. Thank goodness for upgraded kin. The hit detection on them is so weird. Like, sometimes it feels like you just shouldn't be getting hit and you do. But in any case, that's kind of the end of that quest, really. There's a little bit more to loot in here. And it seems like you opened up that area now. It wasn't... Now, that was at the bottom of the stairs. And you'll see that this is the same area where we went in to start the first side quest that we did. So the area down at the bottom of the stairs wasn't available until, you know, you fought through the other little side quest. So that's it for those two. That's the DLC done. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.